How's it? How's it? This is paid advertising. I've been buying stuff off Temu for a while now. If you're not aware of Temu, it's an online website where you can buy all sorts of marvellous stuff and some not so marvellous stuff. It's basically got everything on there. And they ship it over here and it arrives pretty quickly. Download the Temu app using my link in the description box. Enter the code DVC4849 in the app search bar and you can get an NZ $100 coupon bundle for free and get one of my items for NZ $1.90. So I'm just going to show you some of the things that I've purchased off Temu, and I've actually bought it again because it's so good. The coupon bundle must be used within 24 hours of redemption, so if you see your favourite products, be sure to make your purchase before the offer expires. This is the Placino brand, which I've been using for several years now. Telescopic rod and reel. The reels are also very good quality. I was quite surprised when I first bought them. Back in the day when you bought stuff online, it was a bit hit and miss and a lot of things would turn up and they'd be pretty marginal quality. But Temu seems to have sorted that out. I'd say I've had a 95% strike rate from Temu, probably more actually. Now, I don't know if this is a must-have essential for the New Zealand outdoors, but I got it so that I could film in the wet and keep my camera protected. You could also use this as a sun umbrella, but oh, that fire's ripping. Put it in your backpack. Hat umbrella, who doesn't need one of those?
Lots of bites.
Getting bites, but they've overspilled the reel, and I'm no longer using the reel to wind it in. I'm just freehanding it. Catch and release. Well, so far we've caught one cockabully. Something big took the big rod and got off. It's quite practical, isn't it? It needs oh, it does have a chin strap to stop it blowing off your head. I've just got it on sideways, so it's more like a next ear strap for my big ears.
Dad, do you know how to cockabully fish?
Pen reel. Climbing ropes. I bought some of these dynamic climbing ropes. They've all got a CE safety rating on them. You can buy static or dynamic. Static's used for abseiling and dynamic's used for climbing. Dynamic's got a bit more stretch in it. So these make really good tie downs as well as using for a climbing rope. I use them around the home. I've strung up a net floor in my house. Use them for bow lines on the boat and also a rescue rope. This one here is slightly thinner. 50 metres of rope, or this is 60 metres actually. As you can see, it packs down quite small. Very good value for money, these climbing ropes. I tend to cut these end bits off and then tie my own knots in the end instead of using the harnesses they come with. This must be an Asian thing, I guess. We don't really see this in New Zealand. Here's some small carabiners. These aren't climbing carabiners, so they're not rated. They're just for odd jobs. I use them on my canvas tents and my flies. Alloy, so they're super lightweight. They're still really strong, but I wouldn't be using these for climbing because they are not rated. But like I said, you can buy rated climbing carabiners from Temu. Paracord, I buy heaps of this stuff from Temu. You've got to really watch the stuff. It tangles super easy. This stuff is a 7-strand paracord, so if you want to, you can actually take it to bits and you can pull the individual strands out like so. And these are very good, these individual strands, for survival fishing line and also for making snares for small game. Top quality paracord. Check this out. I've got several of these hoses that I use around the house and garden. These are very good quality. Oi! Oi! You dogs! Oi! Stop playing. You're making too much noise. Yeah, you're too noisy. Alright, get out of it. This hose is awesome. It's got a rubber inside with the material bit. Oi! Quiet please. Where was I? Back onto hoses. It's got a material outside with a rubber inside and it is mean. Quality brass fittings, and this packs down super small, so I actually carry one of these. Oi! Enough! Sit! Stay there. I carry this stuff in my truck and I use it to fill up my water containers and whatnot. Like I said, it packs down extremely small and it's very good for around the home. A lot more durable than your rubber hoses because the UV light in New Zealand doesn't break it down as quickly as it does the PVC and other hoses that we have over here. On to our next item. This is an underquilt for a hammock. Now if any of you guys have been hammock camping, you'll know that it's pretty blimmin' cold when you're camping in a hammock, and if you do put an air mattress on the floor of the hammock, they tend to wiggle out the sides, so I recommend taking one of these underquilts with you. And it's a pretty good design. You can see the shape of it is just like a hammock, and this just clicks underneath the hammock and it keeps you warm from the bottom. So pretty good piece of equipment, these underquilts. So there you have it. Pretty good online shopping experience. Jump on, see what you reckon. Remember to use that code for a discount down below, and happy shopping. I'll show you guys a few basic knots and pros and cons and uses for the knot. First is a bowline. This one's used to tie an anchor and it's particularly good for heavy loads. Reason being, you can put a tremendous amount of strain on it and it's easier to undo because of the style of the knot. And here we have it here, a bowline. It's challenging to tie, like all knots. The more you tie it, the more you get used to tying it. The most common way to tie it, and one of the easiest ways to remember, is to make a loop. That's your hole, the main line's the tree, and the end of the rope's your rabbit. So the rabbit goes through the hole and then it goes around the tree and back through the hole again. You can tell if you're going around the tree the right way, because if you're not, the knot will fall to pieces. Now the disadvantage of a bowline is that it can shake itself undone if it's not under constant tension, and one way to help secure that is to just follow the main line back around and through the hole like so, and then you have a more secure bowline and it's less likely to come undone, and you can even throw a half hitch into that. Now with all knots, when you tie them, you want at least a 20 centimeter tag end, and there's less chance your knot's going to come undone. So do the hang loose mother goose and make sure your tag end's that long. Alright, that's the bowline. Great knot. Have a look at a bowline on a bite. You can actually tie a harness using a bowline on a bite. I'm going to show you that really quickly because it's a pretty cool knot. So say that I'm tying the harness for myself, I'd go wrist to wrist and I'd make my looper rope or my bite that long, and if you're tying it for someone else, just get them to put their arms out, and then that's where you put your hole, and you get the end of the loop. That's going to be your rabbit to go around the tree, and you just go around the tree with half of that loop there Now those 2 loops, see you've just made 2 in there, those are going to be for your legs. Rabbit goes around the tree and then back through the hole, and then this loop that you've just poked through the hole, that's going to be for your waist. So leave it a little bit loose and then you can put it on. So I'll put that around my waist and I'll put one leg through each of these holes or these loops and then pull the whole caboodle up. And because I've left the knot a little bit loose, I can then pull it tight, work it tight, and there's my harness. And I can actually combine that with the chest harness and abseil down a cliff, or you can lower an injured patient down a cliff or extract an injured patient. Alright, I'm going to show you that harness, that chest harness now, which is a pretty cool knot. So we'll just start off with a figure 8 on a bite, and once again do it wrist to wrist. I haven't made that quite long enough for myself, so I'm going to open that up and just feed a little bit more through. Now the advantage of a figure 8 knot is it can take a tremendous amount of strain before it breaks, and it's one of the few knots that are the strongest knots. Now the reason the knot weakens or is a weak knot is because of the bend in the rope. So a figure 8 has a pretty smooth curve all the way around it. So now I've made a big loop that's wrist to wrist. I'm going to put that around my body, and I'm going to put a twist in this end and put an arm through that, and then I'll put a twist in the other end of the loop and put that arm through there, and then I'll just pull these loops that I've twisted around my forearms over my head, and then I secure all of those together right there at the figure 8 with the carabiner, and then I'd click that to my bowline harness, and then there's a really secure harness that you can't fall out of. You can click this at the back as well. So that's a pretty cool harness, really quick, really easy to tie if you need to lower yourself down a cliff or whatever, or you've got someone who's not super confident. Next knot I'm going to show you guys is the trucker's hitch. This is just a real simple one. So tying something over the back of the ute, you'd have this end's coming down, and you want to wrap that under or around the hook, and you've got your tag line, so you want to tension this rope up or tension your load up. It's pretty easy. Now you can put one twist in and pull a loop through, but I prefer to put 2 or 3 twists in, and it makes it a bit easier to undo. So put a bunch of twists in so you've got a loop, and then pull the bottom end through that loop, creating another loop, and it's the second loop that you're going to come back up and through to tension that load down. And crank down on that, and then just throw a half hitch or 2 in there to keep it secure. That's a trucker's hitch. There's a bunch of different trucker's hitches you can do. Another really cool one that's quite basic is you put a twist in the rope, and then you put a loop through that twist, and then you use this loop you've just created to crank down on. And to make that extra secure, you can put another twist and feed that top loop through the other twist. That's a sheep shank hitch, sheep shank trucker's hitch. Another sweet trucker's hitch. Another knot just to put a loop in a rope. This one also has multiple uses. This is the Alpine butterfly. There's a few different ways you can tie this. You can put 3 twists and then come back down around the bottom of the rope, and then back up through the hole you've just created. That's one way to tie it. That way it can be quite confusing. Once you've tied that there, you side load it, and then that's your loop. An easier way to tie it is the wrap around the hand 3 times, which I usually use. So just go 1, 2, 3 wraps. Then once you've done your 3 wraps, you get your middle loop. So come under the bottom loop, grab the middle loop, and then come up and around and pull it back through all 3 of those loops, and then once again to secure the knot, side load it. This is a really good knot to take a weak point out of a rope too. Say you've got a rope and there's a frayed knot, I'm afraid not, in there, or a frayed bit of rope, or it's been cut or crushed or whatever, and you can take that weak point out. And make sure that weak point's on your middle wrap. 1, 2, 3, so I'd have the weak point right here. This is a very, very strong knot. Disadvantage, it's not going to pass through a carabiner. So if you've got this rope running on a system, it's not going to pass through a carabiner. So what you can do is just tie an overhand knot to take that weak point out, and that will pass through a carabiner. This is called the, I think it's called the Pyrenees death knot or something, because if you tie an overhand knot, that knot can come undone. But man, we've tested this under lots of different applications, and it's very, very difficult to actually get that knot to come undone. You can take the weak point out, and the advantage of an overhand knot is this will now pass through a system, whereas the Alpine butterfly won't. Show you a couple more hitches now. The munter hitch and the clove hitch. These are super quick to tie. Clove hitch is essentially one loop and then another loop crossed over like this and put through a carabiner. One loop, two loop, and you cross them back. So that would be the clove hitch. And to do a munter hitch, it's kind of the same but different. So a munter hitch is like so. There's a couple of really quick ways to tie these knots. You can cross your hand over and come like that, so the loops are behind each other. That's a clove hitch. And another really quick way is to just bring your hands together at the front, put a carabiner through there, and that's a munter hitch. It's also a good idea to learn how to tie these knots around something too. So for a clove hitch, you'd wrap it, oh it's a bit tricky there, wrap it around there and then come through that, because there are certain instances where you might have to tow the clove hitch or the munter hitch around something, and you won't just be able to go like this and tie it super quick and put a carabiner through, because if you're tying it around a tree, that's not going to work. Clove hitch is a super strong knot because once again it doesn't have sharp angles in the rope. Figure 9's a really good one. I'll show you the figure 9. So figure 9, come up with the idea of figure 9 because it's like a figure 8, but you just put an extra twist in there, and it's almost as strong as a figure 8. I would hazard that it probably is as strong as a figure 8 if you're using 9mm and thicker rope, but it's a lot easier to undo. The figure 8 can be really hard to undo once it's been put under a load. Say it's been shock loaded from someone falling off the wall, or you're using it to snatch a vehicle out of the ditch. So that's a figure 9, almost as strong as a figure 8 and a lot easier to undo. Pretty cool knot. One more knot, the no knot. It's essentially you just wrap the rope around the tree a whole bunch of times and then tie a half hitch in the end, and that's basically, that's just a friction knot. So the more wraps you do, the more friction is on it. If you have about 8 or 9 wraps, you don't even have to tie the other end. You can just wrap it around and drape that end over the rope, and because there's so much friction on there, it won't actually undo. This is a really good knot for anchoring if you're in a 4-wheel drive scenario, because you don't put any knots in the rope, you just wrap it around the tree, leave the other end dangling over the top of the rope, or secure it with a half hitch or whatever, and then it's super easy to undo. There's no fluffing around trying to get it undone. Sweet as.